people have lived here for a very long time.
When English settlers came to Deerfield in the late 1660s, they endured attacks by not just the Native Americans that were here before, but also the French Canadians. Since Deerfield was the most northwestern town in New England, it made it an easy target. Many residents are buried in this cemetery, the old burying ground, with the most tragic event being the February 29, 1704 attack.
50 or so were killed, and all this in a community of about 250 people. So it was a devastating event.
For many, Deerfield wasn't just a way of life, but also a way of death. And that bloody beginning sets the stage now for people to personalize the past, especially on a dark fall evening.
A day like this, sun's going down, raking light, the leaves blow, the hair stands up.
Whispers of ghosts or spirits from old Deerfield haunt the town and turn an ordinary town into something a little bit extraordinary.
There are places that treat people differently, but certainly remind you of the depth of the past.
Many guests of the past continue to make their presence known today, especially here at the Deerfield Inn.
It was a gathering place then, and it's a gathering place now. Like most of the houses on the street, there's a spirit attached, and we've got two, and they're very cool. One's called Herschel, and I was told about him by a woman who'd worked here for 45 years when I got here. Herschel is an unknown entity. We don't know who he is, we don't know why he's called Herschel, we just know that there's this little mischievous kind of character who sometimes emerges. He is rather cheeky. We think he's a little kid. He's very keen on bottom pinching.
When the inn needed repairs after Hurricane Irene and had to close for a year and a half, everything went silent, but
as soon as we were back open, there was this great flurry of naughtiness from Herschel and bossiness from Cora, who's the other ghost.
Cora is more than just a guest from the past and present-day spirit. She used to be the innkeeper at Deerfield Inn. And just like many others that make up the village's history, she also has a room named after her. Coincidentally, years later,
completely by chance, I found out that that was Cora's living room. That's where she held her seances. And that's the door that she knocks on. And she's got a sort of bossy manner to her. And she's a talking ghost, which is super fab. And she says, "It's Cora, let me in." You open the door, and she'll walk off down the corridor.
Guests have even described to Jane in detail Cora's white, high-necked nightgown or her dangling keys, and those similar descriptions line up with Jane's impression from someone who knew Cora personally.
I came across a woman who was quite old at the time, who had been Cora's housekeeper when she was just a little girl, 14. And her name was Eloise Southard, and she found the whole experience of working for Cora so intimidating. But it's so wonderful when you can get somebody telling you what she experienced all those years ago.
Jane says although a serious historian may say these stories are just folklore and don't count, her guests beg to differ.
People will come from Utah and Colombia, and they haven't spoken to each other. And yet you'll hear the same story from somebody from some completely different place that got up in the night, went to the bathroom, came back, and the tissues were all over the floor. I just say, interesting. I think it's the stories, because I think life's all about the stories. And that's what makes one of the things of being an innkeeper so interesting, is that you meet people from all over, from plumbers to princesses, and they all have really interesting stories. And I think just having supposedly ghosts or spirits here, it's just one of the stories, which is what our whole life is put together. That's what it's all about, and that's what I find so marvelous.